Welcome back to another episode of Palisade Radio. This is your host, Colin Cattell. On the show today is a new guest to the program, but you probably know his name quite well. It's Tookie Angus. And Tookie is a very well-known investor. He's been in the mining space for decades through several cycles, and he has lots of knowledge and plenty of success that we're going to talk about today on the show. Tookie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Colin. Pleased to be here.
Well, congratulations on the recent takeout of Arizona Mining, which was an all-cash acquisition by South 32. And as we were discussing the other day on a preliminary call, you were the original vendor on the project there. Congrats, and anything kind of to share on the story there?
No, it's a dream type of deal, and doesn't seem as though anything's disturbing it, so it should close very shortly.
Well, it's certainly an unusual sort of deal in this market. The dollar amount, just the overall sum, is a pretty huge number considering the fact that many deal sizes have shrank quite a bit when compared to going back to, say, 2011 when gold was at $2,000. And that got us talking about a theme that you have for this market and what really drives the interest. And you were talking about the discovery-based nature of the market is what you think is really going to be driving things. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I think we're at the beginning phase of a new discovery hole market. They've happened before, but I think people will get rewarded for new discoveries, largely due to the lack of projects that are available. And there's an awful lot of money chasing very few projects.
That's absolutely true. Let's talk about the gold market as a whole. It's no secret that the investor sentiment, at least on equities and going into the exploration companies, is lackluster right now. Part of that can be due to the summertime, but it seems like a lot of people are throwing the towel in and there's not very much interest. Where do you think the gold market is? Do you think that we're bottoming out here, or is there more downside potential?
I think we have bottomed out. People just don't care about gold. It's just not something that is a particular interest, so that means people, well, like me or, say, Ross Beaty, are in the gold business again. Ross just started a new company. It was an amalgamation of three public companies. He's named it after his original company, Equinox, and he's put significant amount of his own personal funding into it. And he's just the kind of guy who picks up on the sort of low bottom feeding that he's very good at, such as his experiences in the copper properties in the knots. When he went in, people thought, what's this guy doing? And then when he sold a lot of these properties for several $100 million that he paid really pennies for, I see him doing the same thing in the gold business now.
Tookie, going back to PDAC, you did an interview which was well received, and you spoke about us being in a discovery-based drill hole market. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a pretty dynamic investor. You have projects that you pick up, and in the case of Arizona Mining, you'll option those to companies, and ideally have huge successes there. But you're also participating in financings and backing good management teams. Of course, going in and getting a great discovery hole is going to make a lot of money if you're in that right stock. But what are you doing to try to, pick that right company? What is it that you're looking for?
Well, essentially, it's the management. I mean, a good property has to be a given, but management's the key in this business. That's what I always look at first. And I support quite a number of younger people who are rising in the business, and I think I'm a good talent spotter.
Understood on the management side of things. Is there any sort of geographical place you're looking for right now that you think is going to really light up and carry a bunch of money into the space, kind of like what we've seen in the Golden Triangle over the past couple of years?
I think Nunavut and the NWT have been neglected for a long time. I think that we're seeing some good stories coming out of there, and I think that you can get a little oversold on things like the Golden Triangle. It's a very difficult place often to access and to explore, and I've spent a lot of years working in that area. And I think that the NWT in Nunavut will have another day coming up.
Let's talk about some of the management teams and companies that have you interested. The reason that we've been put together is by a fellow by the name of Judson, and he's the CEO and founder behind a company called Rover Metals, which just went public. We had the opportunity to sit down back at the last year's Sprott conference. It was the first time we met. And that was a story that you were getting behind a young guy that you have a lot of confidence in, capabilities in a bad market. What has you excited about Rover, and also a little background on Rover?
Well, I've been involved with Rover for some time. It wasn't just a year ago. I was backing them on a project in Colombia that has been set aside and will be advanced later. But the one thing I do like is what Judson Coulter's doing in the NWT. He isn't just a greenfield explorer there. He's managed to acquire a property that was explored in the past, has an historic resource with good grades and widths that it's feasible will be expanded by further drilling. And that's his primary target right now. He has another property without resources, but practically in downtown Yellowknife, and I think that's got some promise as well. In any case, Judson has surrounded himself with some great advisors and board members who have long experience in the business, and I think will support him as he advances these projects.
When you're looking at the Northwestern Territories as a jurisdiction, it's probably not one that most investors are familiar with by nature of the fact that not very many companies are exploring there right now. When you are looking there, I imagine there's a whole bunch of gold that is likely undiscovered. What are you looking at otherwise in terms of exploration season, native relations, anything else to be cognizant of that has you interested in that area?
Well, the seasonal nature of the work is often a drawback, and yet for more advanced projects, you can work through the winter if it's justified because the costs go up. Often, though, people who are working up there will have some other jurisdiction in a warmer spot in the world where they can devote their attentions in the wintertime, which is quite common. And I don't think I've discussed that with Judson, but there might be something in the cards there for him.
Yeah, very, very interesting concept there. Well, Rover Metals is ROVR on the Toronto Venture Exchange for anybody who wants to look at that. Are there any other companies that you're really keen on right now at this point in the market? Well,
I think I chair three companies. One is San Marco, which is operating exploration projects in Sonora State in Mexico, and I think we're onto something there, a high-grade copper-silver discovery, and I expect that someone, if not San Marco, will be drilling it in the very near future. Another company that I chair is called Canadier. It's in the Kyrgyz Republic. It surrounds, the property it has surrounds the Zijin gold mine there that went in production, I think, 2 years ago, and the mineralization comes onto the Canadier ground. It recently took money from an associated fund of Zijin, which is one of China's largest gold mining companies, and I expect we'll see some good things happen there. I would say, though, my first priority right now is K92 mining in Papua New Guinea. It's an operating underground gold mine which was purchased at a bargain price from Barrick Gold a few years ago, has been put back in production, and right now is achieving significant production targets as well as very exciting drilling results. And not very often you find properties like that available in the world that could be expanded to double production from 50,000 to 100,000 ounces by the expenditure of a very low $15 million. So I've got a lot of good thoughts for that.
Excellent. Well, that's four companies for listeners to look at, and appreciate you sharing those. Circling back to the market and the gold market, with the thought in mind that we're at a bottom or close to a bottom, and using the lens of having seen multiple cycles in your career, I think people forget the kind of returns that can be had coming out of such a depressed point, like many of these juniors seem to be at right now. And people kind of throw the towel in right at the end, and then all of a sudden everything takes off. What do you kind of expect to happen? Say that we start to have a movement in the fall, lining up with that normal upward move in gold in the fall time. What kind of changes happen in the gold junior market?
Well, when you combine that with a discovery story, if you have a rising gold price and you achieve some significant results, I think you can have an absolutely dramatic increase in share prices.
Yeah, those are the kind of returns that people see and get them attracted to this space and unable to move away. And I guess those kind of returns are needed when you have to weather the type of depressing markets like you go through for the past year and a half or 2 years.
I think that's probably true, but then I've been in this business for so long, that's just a blip in time to me.
Yeah, well, that certainly puts a good perspective on it as well. And you've had a very successful go at it, even in markets where most people aren't having success. And case and point is Arizona mining, just been really one of the only interesting takeovers this year, and a big one.
Well, and a lot of the credit for that goes to Richard Wark. This is his three-peat. I think he's now sold over $4 billion worth of undeveloped mining assets in the last 7 years.
Yeah, and the next deal that he brings to the market will certainly be one that people should take note of.
Well, it's already there. Titan, symbols TI, zinc mine in Albany, New York.
Wow, now that's an unusual mining jurisdiction. Is that something that you're involved in as well?
I'm an advisor to the company.
And what's the prospect of getting a mine opened in a state like New York?
Well, it is open. It's operating. It's in production. It was an old mine that was restarted. I don't expect that's the last thing Mr. Wark will be doing with that company. I don't see him starting any new ones, so I expect to see him concentrating on it.
Excellent. Well, that's one to keep an eye on. I want to end with one final question for you, Tookie, and that's we've spoken primarily about gold in this interview, but of course gold's just one commodity in a whole set of commodities. Is there any other areas that you're looking at that really interest you right now?
Well, I think with the electrification of not just cars, but the world, copper is essential. Battery metals are very intriguing, particularly right now, I think, vanadium, which is a strategic metal and not thought to be found in the United States, but that's not so. Things are happening there. And I think zinc, you can't produce a ton of steel without coating it or it'll rust. And zinc is in short supply. And there have been a lot of zinc mines go out of production over the last couple of years. And I think that the interest in zinc will continue. There has been quite an emphasis on it the last little while, but I think it's going to be there for some time to come.
All right. Well, Tookie, thanks so much for taking the time today to talk to us, go through a few companies and what to look for in the market. You've got a ton of insights, and I hope that we can start to do this on a regular basis now that we've gotten you on the show. And until then, best of luck with everything, and hopefully we can have another Arizona mining type success story in your portfolio this year.
We'll see.
Yeah, that would be good.
Thanks, Paul.
Think you understand the junior mining sector, and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
How violent that term could be, it actually could be quite violent. It could be a rip-your-face-off uranium rally.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen?